very strange going on that there's no money. Nobody wants to hold on to any money. There's money prices. We know what everything is worth, $2 for a McMuffin, but nobody's actually holding on to money, and he has to explain why this is. And he says, well, why would anybody hold on to money if they were fully certain about what all of their expenses were going to cost in the future? Like, if you were certain about every single expenditure that was going to arise in your life, you would never hold on to money and earn zero interest. You would park your money in an investment that matures at the exact moment when the expense arises, and then you would use the proceeds of that investment to fund the expense. Example, let's say that I get paid on the first of the month and my rent comes due on the last of the month. I would not just hold all of my income in the form of money. I could buy a 30-day investment product that would pay some interest rate, not much right now, I guess, but some interest rate, and it's going to mature at that exact moment in time when my rent comes due. So, of course, I wouldn't hold money. I would invest it for the relevant maturity, 30 days. I would earn some investment income off it, and the money would still be available for me to pay my rent. Or alternatively, you could flip the example around, and if my income comes on the first of the month, my rent's not due until the end, I could go to my landlord and I could say, I'll pay you a month early at a discount. Like, surely it would be valuable to you to be paid earlier rather than later. So instead of, $1,000 at the end of the month, I'll give you $975 right now. So I'll be able to settle up my expenses if I know they're going to happen at a discount. Or you could go to your landlord, if you've ever tried this, if you rent a place, instead of paying rent monthly, just go to them and say, hey, I'll front-end load all of my rental payments, so I'll give you a whole year's rent right now. What kind of discount will you give me? And surely they'll give you something for the security and also the benefit of having the rental income come in sooner rather than later. So Mises says if you were fully certain about all of your expenditures, as you are in the evenly rotating economy, you would never hold on to money because you would buy a financial product to invest or settle up early at a discount. So then he turns that example on its head and he says, well, then it must be that the only reason you hold money is if you're uncertain about these future expenditures. And fundamentally, that's where your demand to come from money, that's where your demand to hold money comes from, this felt uncertainty or this perceived uncertainty of what's going to happen in the future. But then he goes on to say and make a distinction that it can only be that you are hedging yourself against uncertain events, things that you don't actually know or can't probabilistically determine in advance. But you're not holding money against risky events, because risky events you could theoretically invest or settle up at a discount according to some probability. And he makes this big follow-on distinction between risk and uncertainty, which is relevant here. He says uncertainty is a situation where you either don't know the outcomes of a choice or you cannot assign probabilities to an outcome happening. He gives a couple examples in human action. For example, I don't know, I forget if this is the actual belligerents, but Germany and France go off and fight a war. Who's going to win? We can't really assign a probability statement to that. I mean, we know the outcome is either Germany wins or France wins, or actually in war, both lose. But in the example, Germany wins or France wins. But we don't know which side's going to win, and we can't assign probabilities. We could guess, but we have no idea. Or sports games, which team's going to win? Well, I know it's either going to be one or the other, but I really don't know at the end of the day. There's betting markets, you might say, so there are probabilities assigned, but they're not probabilities in any meaningful sense. They're just estimates. They're just guesses, and they're the estimates of thousands of people getting together, but they're not what we're talking about by quantitative probabilities. And then Mises contrast this with risky outcomes. Risky would be where you know the actual outcomes and you can make statements quantitatively about the probabilities, like you roll a die and there's a 1/6 chance that each one of the numbers is going to come heads up, or you flip a coin and it's either going to be heads or tails, and 50-50 shot of either or. So we have uncertain events and risky events, and Mises says when you hold money, it has to be for these uncertain events. Those are really what you're protecting yourself against or hedging yourself against through your money holdings. Now then, if that is so, what are the specific uncertainties that you're facing with respect to your money holdings? And there's two unknowns with your future expenditures. You either don't know when they're going to happen, or you don't know how much they're going to be for. Like, something could happen. What would be a good example of something happening, but you don't know when it's going to happen? Okay, yeah. Be an optimist. Yeah, I know how you mean. A car crash, probably. You will get hungry, but you don't know when you'll get hungry. But you are going to get hungry. There's no question about it. Fantastic. Or alternatively, you don't know when it's going to happen, but you know the magnitude of it. For example, I'm going to keep rolling this dice. Maybe that's a bad example, but I'm going to keep rolling a dice, and when a 1 comes up, I'm going to give you $10. But you don't know when exactly a 1 is going to come up, but you know when it finally does come up, I'll give you $10. So you have uncertainty about timing or how much, the magnitude of an expenditure. Or with money holdings, you're concerned about both of those things together. You don't know how much or when the actual expenditure will be for, and that's why you're holding money today. Like the cash in your pocket right now or the money in your deposit account is held to guard against these two uncertainties that you have. Now, let's bring it back to financial assets for talk on finance. All financial assets, to the extent that they involve exchanges of money, concern themselves with two questions. What are you going to get from a financial asset, and when are you going to get it? And with each of those questions, there's two responses to each of them that we can get, which is where this typology is going to come from. What you get is really asking the question of what type of value does a financial asset give to you or allow you to have? And the two types of value that can exist are what we call either par or market. Market is the easier to understand. Market value is a value which changes as per the vicissitudes of the market. We have supply changes, demand changes, and the price changes as a result. Like your car was worth something when you bought it, and then you rolled it off the lot and you lost a third of its value, and then you got in a car crash and that was the other 2/3 of the value, and the value changed according to the actual market conditions at the time. And par value is where the value is fixed or predetermined. A good example of this is money. Like, for example, I don't actually have any. Good thing lunch was provided because I don't have anything except for 25, 35 cents. This coin is worth 25 cents, which when I was a kid used to get me lunch, but this 25-cent coin, no matter when I spend it, the prices might change, but it's always worth 25 cents. I mean, the face value is 25, so okay, maybe today I go and I buy a pack of gum, and the pack of gum cost me 10 cents, so I paid with this 25 cents. And tomorrow, maybe the pack of gum is going to cost 15 cents, and I still pay with this 25-cent coin. The value is always fixed, or it's what we call a par value. It doesn't change as per market conditions. And the question of when you actually get that payment from the financial asset, obviously enough, can either be right now in the present, on demand, or at some time in the future after you wait for the value to mature or come to you. And with those two criteria, you end up with 4 quadrants here, and each of the 4 quadrants outlines a specific financial asset. So up in the northwest, I've already got it labeled, but money is the unique financial asset to take that quadrant because money is the only good in the financial economy that sells in the present. Like the value is there at a moment's notice. I use this and the value is released. I don't have to wait for it at all. And your deposit account is the exact same way, by the way. You get to use it at a moment's notice. You swipe your debit card, you go to the ATM, whatever have you. The value is available in the present on demand, and you know how much it's going to be for. Again, prices can change, but the actual value stated on the money unit does not change. So money is a very unique quadrant here. And let's go up to quadrant 2 in the northeast. Anybody think of an example of a financial asset where you get the value right now, but you don't know exactly how much value you're going to get? It just depends on market conditions, supply-demand conditions. Stocks, right? You can sell your stock at a moment's notice, always. What are you going to get for it? I don't know, whatever the value of the shares are. If it's a good time to sell them, make out okay. If it's not so great, maybe you don't do so well. Or, kitty corner to that here in the third quadrant, a financial asset where you get a par value. It's predetermined how much you're going to get, but you have to wait a specific period of time until you get it. Bonds. So a bond, I buy a 30-year bond, and I give the U.S. government $1,000 today, and they go bankrupt, I don't know, 15 years from now and give me nothing. Or, ideally, 30 years from now, they give me my $1,000 back. And then there's a strange quadrant right here in the fourth quadrant, a market value that you don't get until the future. Is it just a future or a forward? I'm not going to get into it. If you took a finance class, you'd know what I'm talking about. But these are just, the whole shebang. You don't know what you're going to get, and you have to wait until the future in order to get it. So we've got 4 specific types of financial assets that exist in the economy, and you can see that in particular, when we went back to you earning income and then having 3 streams that you can spend them on, you add to your cash balance, you consume, or you invest, you save and invest. Well, your savings and investment takes place through either an equity investment or a bond investment. You either lend your money to somebody in the form of a bond, in which case you wait, 10 years and you get it back with interest, or you buy a stock or an equity investment, and you can get it back. You can cash out whenever you want, but only at whatever the prevailing price is. And notably, neither of these need to take place through a bank. Like if you think about your bank, what is the main reason why you go to your bank? Like the very fundamental reason why you go to your bank. Not to take out a loan, not to take out a mortgage. You could do that, but before you do that, you have to put money into your bank. You have to make a deposit. And the fundamental reason that we go to banks is to convert our currency into a deposit account. Like I don't feel safe walking around Auburn with these 35 cents in my pocket. So I'm going to go over to, the First National Bank of Auburn or whatever it's called and open up a deposit account. I'm going to entrust them with my 35 cents. They'll keep it safe for me. Fantastic. All I did was convert between different forms of money, currency for a deposit, but it was still money at the end of the day. So this specific quadrant is what banks are really in the business of doing. And these two quadrants have nothing at all to do with banks, at least in a free society. They possibly seem like they do today, but only because of this very legal, this balderdized legal contract of the fractional reserve deposit contract, fractional reserve deposit. So equity, where do we go to buy equities? Go to the stock market. Fantastic. Or you could do it over the counter with friends. You don't have to go formally to the stock market. You could strike up equity contracts on your own. Or the bond market, where do you go to invest in bonds or to borrow with bonds? Well, you can go on the bond market. You can go to financial institutions that do this, but they don't have to be your bank, notably. And futures I'm not going to get into because that's a different kettle of fish. Now, I want to put this in a little bit of different phrasing. Well, we'll see how you follow. So I want to classify these risks and uncertainties into a classificatory scheme. So again, the two big uncertainties you have with financial assets are how much are you going to get and when are you going to get it? And of course, those questions you can either say, I know when I'm going to get it, or I don't know when I'm going to get it. I know how much I'm going to get. I don't know how much I'm going to get. And then we can classify in our four quadrants here the resultant risks or uncertainties that result. So if you don't know when something's going to happen, but you know how much you're going to get, that's something that we could call structural risk, or something that is called structural risk. Like, for example, I'm going to die, I don't know when. It's structural risk. I mean, it could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now, and probably statistically it's going to happen when I'm, 79 years old. Clock is ticking. And alternatively, you could know exactly when something happens, but not the magnitude. Hey, I'm going to give you something great if you meet me behind the Mises Institute at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Yeah, you're exposed to a lot of systemic risk on that one. Over the next 3 hours, you got to wait to see what it's actually going to be. My van is parked out back, yeah. And alternatively, you could not know anything about the timing and not know anything about the magnitude, and that would make you fully uncertain. And again, that's why you hold money, since we've already established that you hold money for these very uncertain situations, we know that you're holding money to meet the uncertainty posed by this specific quadrant here, this combination of uncertainty of timing and uncertainty of magnitude of your future expenditures. That's important. It's not just blind, it's pertaining to a future expenditure that you have to make. Now, let's see how your financial assets work with